After watching my previous video on softbox recommendations, a viewer asked me if I would do something similar with regard to flash units. And so that's what this video is. Now for this video, I'm going to assume that you don't know a lot about flash photography, modern flash units, or you're a first-time flash buyer, kind of just wondering what it is that you should pick up. This is going to be, from my perspective as a portrait photographer. So we're talking about maybe your first flash purchase where you want to get serious with flash photography for portraits. I'm going to pretty much focus on something that you can use on camera and off camera as your first key light. Now, I've been specializing in flash photography for many years. I've written a few books and co-authored a few books and written some courses on flash photography. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos on the topic of flash photography, the advice is always the same. Start with one flash, okay? Get really good at using that one flash. Understand how it works. Understand how the flash works with your camera on a technical level. And then, if you feel like it, move on to a second, then a third flash. Always go in steps with photography. You don't have to learn everything at once. You don't have to buy a big flash setup. Just start with one light and then move on from there.
If you'd like to learn how to put together your very first off-camera flash setup, I've got a free training you can watch right now. In it, you'll learn how to use simple, affordable gear to create professional-looking portraits. It's an easy-to-follow video, good for beginners or anyone who doesn't want to get too technical but still wants to learn how to do better portraits with better lighting. All you need is one flash and a few other items to start taking portraits like a pro. Again, this training's free. Just click the link in the description below to get started.
Now, my advice is to start with a good Speedlight type flash. Now, of course, you can go ahead and buy a big fancy studio strobe for your first flash if you want to, but I don't suggest doing that. You can get a really good quality flash unit in Speedlight form, shoe mount flash form. They don't have to be really all that expensive. The good thing with starting with the Speedlight is you can use it on camera or you can mount it off camera using something like this. Just a simple little, I believe this is just a like $20 adapter. You can place your flash in here like this. Tighten it up, put this on a light stand, and you're good to go for off-camera flash. All right, so this way you got the best of both worlds, on-camera flash or off-camera flash. All right, so another very important thing to look for when you're looking to buy a flash is to make sure that you get the flash that has a swiveling and rotating flash head. Okay, this is going to be very useful even when you start off using it on camera, because you're gonna learn how using the flash in these different orientations affects the look of your lighting. So you're taking a picture of somebody, you've got it straight forward like this, you're going to get one look. You bounce it off of the ceiling, you're going to get another look. You bounce it off of a wall like this and back onto your subject, a whole other look. And these looks can be pretty sophisticated, and they can give you, I would say, pretty close to professional quality portraiture without ever having to even take your flash off your camera. Okay, so now let's talk about power, all right? So manufacturers tend to rate their flash units and strobes by watt seconds or guide numbers, okay? Now, I don't really know how much I want to trust a manufacturer's claim as far as their flash power goes, but this is what I'm going to suggest. I suggest you do what I did with every flash unit I've ever bought. I look up the reviews. I see what other people's experiences are with regard to, how much good flash power they've gotten out of a particular model of flash, and just go with that. In general, I'd say that if a flash claims a guide number of something like just under 200, like it's usually 197 at ISO 100, when the flash zoom is, when you're dealing with a narrow beam. That's probably the kind of flash power that you're going to be looking for. And speaking of that, flash head zoom function, let's talk about the basic flash features that I think that you should consider when buying your first flash. All right, like I said before, I think what you definitely want is a swiveling, rotating head, okay? It's going to teach you a lot about what you can do with a flash, even when it's mounted directly on top of your camera. You also, most of these flash units have this little what I'd call like a little mini bounce card. It's basically, you use a flash kind of like this, and it creates a catch light. Lots of times when you're shooting outdoors, this will give your subject a nice little catch light. I don't know if I ever use this, but look at this other thing right here. This also popped out of here when I just shoved this other thing back in. This is a wide angle adapter, some manufacturers call this. It's like a little lens that just disperses the light even wider than the flash's normal wide zoom. And yes, like I said, the flash has like this internal zoom. This is something that moves back and forth that either widens or narrows the beam for you. At more narrow settings, the beam is concentrated, so you're going to get a stronger light in a smaller area than you would if it was just at its widest setting. You also want a good recycle time. Most of these better flash units have decent recycle times. Now, you know, people have told me, hey, Ed, you know, you really should look into external battery packs because then it's really good recycle time. You can just flash, flash, flash. And I don't shoot that way. I'm a kind of a slow shooter, right? Like I, you know, kind of consider every shot, and I'll take a picture and I'll look. I'll take another picture, and you know, I just don't machine gun my camera, especially when I've got a flash unit on top of it. And besides, most of these flashes, they've got protection features, because like if you know, that will shut the flash down if you're just doing too many flashes in a row, which is good because then it'll, you know, you can burn the flash unit out if they didn't have these protection features that will stop the flash from firing after a certain number of flashes in a row. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with external battery packs. I use rechargeable batteries, pretty high powered ones, and they do exactly what I need. I don't really need much more than what I'm getting out of those. Some of these flash units have modeling lights, and these could be you know, secondary lights like LED lights or something external to the actual flash tube. And some of them use the flash tube as the modeling light, but really what you're getting out of a modeling light in those situations is a stroboscopic kind of flash for about a second, and it's really the flash firing kind of at low power, just really fast, several pulses in a second, and it kind of gives you the idea of what the light's going to look like on the subject. This is another feature that I almost never use. I can't think of a time when I've actually used it except for experimentation. Just like, hey, what does this thing look like? And you know, I didn't really like the way that it worked. And you can't do it for too many times in a row, kind of like using fast recycle times to get tons of flashes in a row. You can't use this type of modeling light feature with one of these flashes for too many times in a row, or the thing just shuts down on you. So that's one of those things I'd say isn't really a big deal for me. Now, what I would recommend is that your flash has all of the modern features, okay? And that means TTL, so you can use your flash with your camera's version of TTL. It should have manual control, okay? And that's usually like from full power to 1/128th power in increments of a stop or a third of a stop, or you know, something like that. You want to be able to adjust your flash manually as you progress in your understanding of how flash works. Most of these flash units can operate as a remote unit or a slave, or they can even operate as a master unit or a controller on the top of your camera to control other flash units. You definitely want something that can give you wireless remote control over other flashes, or that it can at least be remotely controlled wirelessly with some type of master unit. You can also go with the optical triggering control, but you know, that's got some limitations to it. You should be using a system that allows you to work in different channels and in different, you know, with different groups, where you can basically put your individual flashes. Once you get to multiple flash setups, you can put some flashes in, say, group A, and some in group B, some in group C, so that you can control those groups individually. And not to get into too much detail, why would you do that? Well, because maybe your main light, your key light, is group A, and then maybe your background light is group C, and your hair light is group B. And so you can control the intensities of all of those through your master control unit separately as groups. So yeah, you want to use radio triggering as much as possible, but if you're using, for whatever reason, if you ever come across a situation where you're going to trip your flash optically, it's good to have a flash that's got the S1 and the S2 modes. So the way that S1 and S2 modes work is like this. So let's say that you've got a pop-up flash in your camera, your Speedlight, you want to mount it off camera somewhere, but you don't really want to trigger it with TTL signals or something like that. Well, that light, if you set it to S2 mode, even if you're using your pop-up flash, which will give you a pre-flash lots of times, the off-camera flash that you have set up in S2 mode will ignore the pre-flash and fire when it's supposed to during the actual exposure, during the time that your other flash is contributing to the actual exposure. Whereas S1 mode is that, you set it to that mode and the flash will go off, the first flash it sees elsewhere in the setup. Again, that's a little more of an advanced topic, but most of these flashes have the S1 and S2 modes already built in. So, it'd be kind of weird if you got a flash that didn't have that. You're not going to have TTL when you do something like that. It's just gonna be the flash firing whenever you click that shutter button, and the flash power that it's going to emit is something that you've preset in the flash's manual mode. Definitely want high-speed sync, that's HSS, on your flash. And what this allows you to do, again, this is sort of a more advanced topic. So say you're shooting outdoors and you need to use a shutter speed that is a lot faster than your camera's standard flash sync speed. Then you use high-speed sync to sync up your flash in your camera, and it'll work. Again, lots of times you use that for, certain effects. Sometimes you use it with fill flash. Okay, so then you might ask, Ed, you've been giving me all this advice about what features to look for in my first flash, but just tell me what flash to buy. Okay, I'm not gonna do that, but what I'm gonna do is tell you that I like using Godox flashes right now. I've been using them for a while. I was using Yongnuo flashes, but they were, look back a few videos, you'll see why I stopped using Yongnuos, but I'm using Godox a lot now. No, they're not paying me to say this. This is just something that, these are flashes that I buy for myself and I like how they work. They've been pretty dependable. Now, I've been using the TT685, but some people have told me the V8603 is a good unit to use if you want, to go it's got like an internal battery that you can recharge. Anyway, that's something you might want to think about. I believe they're about the same power, but one has that lithium ion battery. Anyway, there's also the Canon 600EX2 RT, and there is the Nikon SB700 and the SB5000. And there are definitely plenty of others that I haven't used or that I don't know about. So you just do your research, look for a good flash. Just don't get one of these janky off-brand ones and you'll be okay.
If you'd like to learn how to put together your very first off-camera flash setup, I've got a free training you can watch right now. In it, you'll learn how to use simple, affordable gear to create professional-looking portraits. It's an easy-to-follow video, good for beginners or anyone who doesn't want to get too technical but still wants to learn how to do better portraits with better lighting. All you need is one flash and a few other items to start taking portraits like a pro. Again, this training's free. Just click the link in the description below to get started.
All right, now, if you're going to ignore my advice and not buy a Speedlight type, shoe mount type flash, and you want to go straight for a studio strobe as your first flash unit, I guess you're being ambitious. That's fine. You can do that, but I'd suggest just make sure that you get a studio strobe. If this is going to be your first one, I would suggest that you make sure that your studio strobe has all of the features that I've just been talking about. And let's say a good example of this is the Godox AD600 Pro. Now that one has, it's like the TT685, but it's a big studio strobe, and it's got a nice rechargeable battery on it, and it's good for location work and studio work. So that is something I would say would be a good safe bet to go with for your first one, because it's got all the smart features that you'd find on a Speedlight type flash, but it's built into the studio strobe, even TTL, and you just control it with the same kind of controller that you'd use use to control your Speedlight off camera. And these controllers, like say if you're using your Speedlight or the Studio Strobe off camera, these controllers are they're manufacturer specific. So let's say that you get the Godox version. Just make sure that it's the Godox version specifically for your camera type. So I've got the one that's specifically for the Sony because I'm using a Sony to take still pictures right now. But you can get one for the Canon or the Nikon, the Fuji, and then that will work with your, say, your Studio Strobe's TTL feature. I guess some of them won't work that way, but you've just got to be sure that if you're getting one of these Studio Strobes with the smart TTL capability, that it matches the TTL of the camera that you're using. Otherwise, you can always get just a basic Studio Strobe that doesn't have all of these things. Like my first one was just a dumb manual Studio Strobe, and it worked just fine. But by then I had really learned how to use flash, and I learned how to meter the flash and use manual settings only. I didn't really rely on all the special features and TTL and stuff like that for my portraiture. Speaking of which, flash meter. This is something we didn't talk about. Are you going to need a flash meter? Well, if you're using your flash on camera and you're using TTL, no. If you're using your flash off camera and you're using TTL, probably not. But once you start getting into manual settings, then maybe you might need to use a flash meter depending on what it is you're doing. Now, most people don't really use them anymore. I know some people just say, no, you still have to use them, but I don't use a flash meter or a light meter anymore for flash photography because everything is instantaneous now. You get instantaneous feedback when you're shooting digital because, you take a picture, you make an educated guess about your flash power. You take a picture. If it's too dim, you turn the flash up a little bit. Of course, we're talking about manual settings. Or even when you're using TTL, sometimes you might have to dial the compensation up or down a little bit. But again, flash meter, external handheld flash meter or light meter, it kind of depends on what you're going to be doing. You're going to have to determine if you need one or not. Anyway, back to the main piece of advice. If this is your first flash, I recommend getting the on-camera type, the shoe mount flash, the Speedlight type flash. If you're not going to do that and you want to go straight for a Studio Strobe, I'd recommend something that's smart enough to do a lot of the stuff that your on-camera flash would do. The only problem is you're not going to be able to put that thing on your camera, so it's not going to be like super portable like your Speedlight would be. Now, if any of you have some advice that you'd like to offer beginners or somebody who's really not used to using flash and really doesn't know where to start, if you've got some advice to add to what I've said, or even if you disagree with some of the stuff that I've said, please go ahead and comment down below. Share your thoughts and opinions on this because look, I stick to a very limited selection of gear. I find what works for me, and I just kind of stick to that for a long time until it stops working for me, until I know that something has a feature or works a certain way that would be a lot better than what I'm doing now. And that doesn't happen very often. So if you've got some suggestions or something to add to what I've said, please share that in the comment section below. And hey guys, while you're at it, go ahead and click subscribe. Click that like button if you found this video at all useful. I think that's about all I got for you today, guys. See you next time.